The deep dive. We are here, as always, to take really complex information, try and strip away some of the noise, and give you the essential knowledge you need.
To just be, well, better informed.
Exactly. Now, before we dive in today, just a quick reminder. If you want more great insights like the ones we're about to share, you really should visit Mind Expansion Daily.
It's the best place to keep expanding that knowledge base.
It really is. And please, do us a small favor. Like this, subscribe if you haven't already. It genuinely helps us keep bringing these deep dives to you.
And, if you really appreciate what we're doing, if you find this valuable, you can always buy us a coffee.
Yeah, the link's right there in the description. It's much appreciated.
And we definitely want to hear from you on this one. It's quite a sensitive topic we're tackling today.
It is.
So after listening, please leave a comment. Let us know if you agree or disagree with what the sources we looked at are revealing.
And tell us where you're listening from. Just list your location. We're really trying to grow our worldwide reach, so it's great to see where everyone is tuning in.
Okay, so today's mission.
Right. Our mission today is very focused. We're doing a deep dive into the, complex and frankly rapidly evolving demographic picture in England.
Specifically looking at its Muslim population.
Yes. We've pulled together analysis that really sits right at the heart of the current national debate over there.
And what makes this so charged, I think, is this core conflict that just jumps out from all the source material we reviewed.
It is.
It's this intense national conversation, this debate, really, over whether this demographic shift is, on one hand, eroding traditional values, or on the other, significantly enriching the nation's fabric.
Right. It's framed in such stark terms, and you see that friction reflected everywhere online, don't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Like in those trending X posts our research captured, asking these really tough kind of binary questions like Muslim boom, threat or treasure.
That framing itself tells you just how high the emotional stakes are, and the political stakes, too.
Yeah. And I think what's fascinating here is that the conversation is so heated because the scale of change is, it's measurable. And it's happened relatively quickly.
We're not talking about some slow, centuries-long evolution here.
No.
This is a demographic surge that is, in some areas, fundamentally changing the cultural arithmetic, you could say.
Okay, let's unpack that then. Let's get into the hard numbers to really establish the scope we're talking about.
Let's do it.
So, based on updated 2021 census data, projecting forward a bit, as of roughly October 1st, 2025, England's Muslim population stands at about 4.4 million people.
Right. And that represents what, around 6.5% of the total population of England?
Exactly, 6.5%.
And that figure, 4.4 million, 6.5%, that's really the source of the conversation, isn't it? Because of the growth rate.
Which is running at about 1.5% annually.
Yeah, driven by a mix of things, immigration, of course, but also combined with a somewhat higher birth rate within the community compared to the general population.
But the really eye-opening number, I thought, was the historical jump.
Oh, definitely. The fact that the Muslim population has effectively tripled since 2001. Back then it was, 4.9%, I think? No, wait, the total population was 4.9% Muslim back then. No, that's not right. It grew by 4.9% points between 2001 and 2021 census.
Okay, got it. So the increase was significant, leading to the tripling in number. That sheer speed, in just over 2 decades, that's what's generating the friction, the debate.
Precisely. Tripling in that time frame really puts the speed of the shift into sharp relief.
But what's also striking, according to the sources, is that this population isn't, evenly spread out across the country. It's quite concentrated.
Not at all. And this is where that concentration factor becomes really critical politically and socially. Nationally, okay, it's 6.5%.
Right.
But then you look at London, and that figure jumps to 15% of the population. 1.5.
15% in London.
Okay, and get this. In England's second largest city, Birmingham, it hits an astonishing 30%.
30%. Wow. 1 in 3 people in a major city like Birmingham identifies as Muslim. That kind of demographic density has to fundamentally shift things locally. Politics, demand for public services, cultural visibility, everything.
It just creates a new reality on the ground. And looking ahead, the projections are quite something too. Pew data suggests the national population share is expected to nearly double its current figure.
To what?
Reaching around 13% by 2050.
13% nationally by 2050.
Yeah. And when you look at that 13% projection, it kind of crystallizes the tension we talked about. That fear of social fragmentation on one side, set against the reality of cultural and economic contribution on the other.
Okay, that sets us up perfectly for our next segment then. Looking closely at those integration hurdles and the public concerns that are documented in the sources, Because while the community is growing, the analysis does highlight some significant socioeconomic pressure points.
That's the crucial nuance, isn't it? It's not a simple story. The data shows pretty significant economic and, well, geographical disparity.
But what specifically?
For instance, roughly 1 in 4 Muslims in England, that's 25%, live in officially designated deprived areas.
And that's much higher than the national average.
Oh, significantly higher.
Mm.
And linked directly to that deprivation, you see the specific hurdle of youth unemployment.
Right. The source material noted a really staggering figure there. Was it 40% unemployment among young men within the community?
40%, yeah. And when nearly half of your younger male generation lacks stable work, well, that becomes a massive point of economic and potential social instability.
It must create pressure on resources, too.
It does. And the sources actually try to quantify that. They noted about a 10% higher demand on public services in areas where there's a high concentration of Muslim residents.
Okay.
And data from organizations like Migration Watch, which does tend to focus on the challenges, even cited 15% higher welfare use in some very specific localized areas.
Right. So these are the kind of measurable metrics that can fuel that narrative about societal strain.
Exactly. And this brings us to a really specific flashpoint of public anxiety that came up in the research. The whole controversial topic of Sharia councils.
Ah, yes. The source material mentioned, 85 of these councils exist nationwide?
Around that number, yes. And they're estimated to handle something like 10% of civil disputes, mainly within the community.
Okay, so what exactly do they do?
Well, what's interesting here is that they're non-state bodies. They're basically arbitration courts dealing mostly with religious aspects of divorce, sometimes financial mediation, based on Islamic principles.
But they don't have legal standing in UK law, right?
No, not in terms of overriding UK law, but the mere existence of these, let's call them parallel systems, even for specific community matters, is enough to fuel those no-go zone myths you sometimes hear.
And that online commentary asking if Sharia is somehow influencing policy.
Precisely. And this anxiety seems to feed directly into that YouGov finding from 2025, that 20%, 1 in 5 people express fear about the development of parallel societies.
That 20% figure is, well, it's a significant measure of public unease.
It is. Yet it's interesting, the material also notes that on the political front, things might be shifting a bit.
How so?
Historically, Muslim voters have overwhelmingly leaned Labor, something like 80%.
Right.
But the sources indicated that the 2025 elections were showing clear signs that it's maybe not quite the single monolithic voting bloc it once was. There's diversification happening.
Okay, so understanding those hurdles, those anxieties, that's absolutely essential.
But it's equally critical, I think, to understand the profound economic and professional impact this community is already having. Because if we only focus on the strain, the deprivation, the unemployment figures,
we miss half the story.
we miss a huge part of the story. We miss the driving force of the community's positive contributions.
Okay, so let's pivot then. Let's look at that positive side, starting with just sheer economic power.
Good place to start.
The sources highlight the massive size of the halal economy in the UK. Valued at, 20 billion annually?
20 billion pounds, yes. It's a significant economic engine. And the data shows it's rapidly expanding. They're starting something like 2,000 new businesses every single year.
2,000 new businesses a year? That's incredible.
It is. And that entrepreneurial spirit directly counters that youth unemployment narrative we just discussed, doesn't it?
It certainly provides a different perspective.
And beyond business, their professional impact is, well, it's foundational, especially in really crucial sectors like medicine.
You mean the NHS?
Exactly.
Huh.
For example, 15% of doctors in the National Health Service are Muslim. That's according to recent data from the BMA, the British Medical Association.
15% of NHS doctors. That's not just a contribution. That's, as you say, a pillar supporting the national infrastructure.
Absolutely vital. And it's not only about the economy or critical services either. There's the cultural enrichment aspect on a massive scale.
Right. The analysis noted how cultural events like the big Eid festivals, particularly in London, are now major public fixtures.
Huge events, drawing, 100,000 people?
Yeah, 100,000 people easily, and resulting in an estimated 50 million tourism boost just from that one type of event.
And you see that positive sentiment mirrored online sometimes, too, countering the negative stuff. One of the ex-posts captured was simple but quite powerful, I thought.
What was it?
Just, Muslim cuisine spices up England.
Huh. Simple, but true for many people's daily experience.
It speaks to that tangible daily cultural enrichment that most people probably experience in their local communities, through food, music, festivals.
And critically, maybe the most important counterpoint to the parallel society's fear, the sources reveal a really high level of proactive community engagement.
Yeah, this was striking. They noted that a strong majority, 60%, 60% of the community, actively volunteer in interfaith initiatives.
60% volunteering in interfaith work, that statistic directly and powerfully contradicts that 20% public fear we mentioned earlier.
It really does. It suggests a strong desire for connection, not separation. And that high level of engagement, that desire for dialogue, was truly tested and arguably strengthened by a major historical turning point.
You mean the 77 bombings?
We have to address it, yes.
Yeah.
The 77 turning point in 2005.
Horrific tragedy. The bombings killed 52 people.
Terrible day. But what's truly remarkable, looking back through the research, is how that crisis, which, let's be clear, tragically involved radicalized individuals from within the community, ultimately seemed to serve as a catalyst.
A catalyst for what? More division?
Surprisingly, no. A catalyst for greater cohesion and dialogue across the nation. The sources revealed that the number of interfaith councils actually rose by 50% immediately following those attacks.
Really? So the crisis drove an urgent need for dialogue, for unity.
It seems so. A movement that, according to the sources, we still see continuing today, like through the 2025 anniversary events, actively promoting sustained dialogue and collaboration.
So tragedy spurred tolerance, in a way, and increased collaboration. That's unexpected but hopeful.
It is.
So what are the current proactive pathways outlined in the sources? How do we ensure this positive trajectory of integration continues or even thrives?
Well, the initiatives mentioned focus on both institutions and behavior, really. On the institutional side, for example, about 30% of schools in England now incorporate multicultural curricula.
So an acceptance of diverse backgrounds built in from an early age.
That's the idea. And on the security front, which is always a concern after events like 77, the analysis credits the PREVENT program.
That's the UK government's anti-radicalization strategy.
Correct. It's credited with contributing to a cut in radicalization instances by about 20%. Now, PREVENT itself is controversial for other reasons, but the sources cited that figure.
Okay. And if we circle back to the economic solutions for a second.
Yeah.
The fact that Muslim entrepreneurs are apparently 10% above the national average in starting businesses, that suggests economic integration, self-sufficiency, might be one of the most powerful pathways forward.
I think that's a very strong argument. The conclusion the researchers ultimately draw seems pretty clear, that England's Muslim growth represents a major opportunity. Yes, there are challenges, significant ones, but it's an opportunity that must be navigated and ultimately embraced through sustained proactive dialogue.
So the data argues it's more about a diverse destiny, perhaps, rather than an inevitable threat.
That seems to be the bottom line from the analysis we looked at.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize this for you, the listener. What does all this mean? We've seen two really distinct sides of the coin today. On one side, you have these measurable structural challenges, like 1 in 4 Muslims living in deprived areas, that stark 40% youth unemployment figure for young men.
The pressure on services, the welfare use in some areas, those things are real.
Absolutely. But sitting directly alongside that, you have these equally measurable contributions. 15% of NHS doctors, that thriving 20 billion halal economy, the high entrepreneurship rate.
So the true challenge, it seems, is navigating that intense public conversation, which is often sparked by those specific, sometimes anxiety-inducing population figures. You know, the 4.4 million count, or that 13% projection for 2050.
While at the same time actively leveraging the positive integration pathways that are clearly already strong.
Exactly. Things like education, promoting entrepreneurship, and building on that really strong commitment to community service and interfaith work.
Right. Which leaves us with a final, maybe provocative thought for you to consider. We heard that figure. 60% of the Muslim community actively volunteer in interfaith initiatives, focusing on collaboration, on dialogue.
A really powerful statistic.
It is. So the question is, how can the UK ensure that this story, the story of that 60% volunteering rate, that drive for collaboration, becomes the dominant national narrative? How does that narrative overcome the divisive headlines and ultimately silence the fears of that 20% of the public who worry about parallel societies?
It's a huge question. The sources repeatedly suggest the answer lies in just sustaining that dialogue, making those positive contributions visible, unavoidable really, at every level of society.
Food for thought, definitely.
Indeed.
Yeah.
We encourage you to keep exploring this complex, evolving picture.
Absolutely. Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.